This is Victor McClure from McClure Capital. For almost 40 years, I've been advising people on their personal finances. Today, we're going to talk about target date funds. These are your retire 2030, retire 2040, retire 2050. They're the default option on a lot of people's 401ks, okay? And in theory, they sound good. You don't have to allocate and try to pick out all the different mutual funds or the mix. They're supposed to get safer as you get older right before you retire. Here's the problem with target date funds, okay? They compete with each other. They sell from each other. In other words, there's a Fidelity one, a Schwab. There's always these different companies that have all these different target date funds. And so what happens is if you look back in 2008 when the market crashed, the average 2010 mutual fund, because that was when they first came out, either 2000 or 2010, the average 2010 mutual fund lost almost 40%. Now, wait a minute. These people are supposed to retire in a year and a half, and they've just lost 40%. And by the way, it took 5 or 6 years to come back. Well, that's not effective, right? But the reason why it did lose 40% and why they're still to this day aren't allocated properly, in my opinion, is they compete with each other. In other words, if I'm picking different target date funds, let's use the 2030 fund, okay? I've got 401k A, 401k B, and I'm always choosing the target date funds. What if one fund made 20% last year and another fund made 6% last year? Even though the 6% might have been more safe, human nature is you're going to pick the 20% one. And you're going to keep doing that. So if one asset class like stocks outperforms the other, the fixed income, the ones that are more heavily weighted in stocks, maybe even more AI tech stocks, are going to outperform the others, and people are going to buy more of those. The problem with those are they're a lot more risky. Right? There's a lot of risk in there. So in order to sell their funds, they've got to take on more risk than you probably should be for somebody that's going to retire in a couple of years. But that is the way they're built. And that's why, in my opinion, I would always allocate myself, my own 401k, getting more safe as you get closer to retirement, and skip the target date funds.